Why is automation becoming such a critical piece of modern threat response?
It comes down to three reasons for me. First being speed, second being volume, and the third being consistency and accuracy.
Welcome back to our series, Very Important Questions. My name is Ben Baker, Director of Content here at Expel, and this series is all about answering very important questions around different topics. Today, we're talking auto remediation with Claire Hogan, Senior Product Manager of Analyst Efficiencies here at Expel. And throughout the conversation, we're also going to be sprinkling in some other very important questions. These are the actual important questions. But let's dive into it. Claire, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to
Thanks for
have you
having me.
here. Yeah, for sure. Let's actually start. Let's start with one of these very important questions, and
Okay.
I've got a mishmash of them here. So let's see what we get. Oh, this is a good one. You're granted immortality, but have to spend 1 decade every century working the same customer service job. What customer service job would you choose?
That's a great question. Probably waiting tables.
Yeah, right on. All right.
I love the social aspect of waiting tables. You really get to understand how people work a little bit more. And I feel like it's just a great way to kind of figure out how to first gain humility,
Sure, of course.
but
Absolutely.
then secondly, just talk to people of all different types. And yeah, you'll learn a little about them.
Is there a particular restaurant you would wait tables at?
That's a great question.
Maybe the Olive Garden?
Yeah. Unlimited breadsticks.
Oh, soup, salad,
As a
breadsticks
perk.
all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. All right, that's an excellent answer, Claire. All right, over to auto remediation. Let's start simple. Let's start at the top. What is the R? This is related to auto remediation. What does the R stand for in MDR? And what does good response look like for MDR providers?
Yeah. So the R in MDR stands for response. So
That's right.
managed detection and response. Actually, a few years ago, there was a difference between little R providers who suggested response actions the customer should take versus big R providers who push the button on behalf of customers. But at this point in the industry, it's now just table stakes for MDR providers. So the level of depth is probably different for each provider for what they'll do, where they can respond in your environment or how they'll do it. To me, good response from MDR providers comes down to a couple of things: speed, clarity, precision, and partnership. So you're going to want to get an MDR provider that should be both proactive and reactive in their response, providing both root cause analysis and recommendations to prevent repeat attacks that enable your organization to kind of mature and grow alongside that provider.
Why is automation becoming such a critical piece of modern threat response?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes down to three reasons for me. First being speed, second being volume, and the third being consistency and accuracy. So diving into the speed piece of it, cyber attacks move faster than human analysts can. Reduced risk exposure and attacker dwell time is just a big piece of this speed that automation can provide to an organization. So automation allows for real-time detection, analysis, and response before they can escalate. So that's a huge benefit. Second piece being volume. So you're able to really save time and money and reduce the manual burden of, a lot of these alerts and manual tasks on your team. Security teams are flooded with alerts daily. And so automation can help really to triage and prioritize threats and reduce alert fatigue, allowing your team or your humans to focus on what matters most.
Mm.
And the third piece, consistency and accuracy. Automated systems follow like set rules and logic, whereas, if you have a human, there is a chance of human error, especially with that alert fatigue piece added in. So you're reducing the chance of human error, ensuring consistent responses across incidents.
Yeah, that's great. How do you, obviously there's a lot of trust involved in, these types of systems. How do you build trust in automated actions, especially in high stakes environments? Security is serious business. How is trust built?
Yeah, this is a great one because I mean, we've seen this firsthand with a lot of our customers, and I would feel the same way. There's a chance that something goes wrong with automation, and you have to accept that risk. But how can we take measures to reduce that risk? So how I like to think about it, because on the one hand, there's all these benefits that we just talked about, that could be saving your team tons of time, money, effort, manual burden, and even increased security posture. On the other hand, you want to make sure that there's a limited chance for things to go wrong. And I think there's four great ways to do that: transparency, keeping a
Hmm.
human in the loop, testing, and with granular controls that are built into how you carry out the automation. So you want to make sure that your team has visibility into what the automation is doing and why. And that's that transparency piece. Like clear rule-based logic helps with this. Explainable permissions. If you're handing over permissions for your tool, you want to make sure what those are being used for.
Hmm.
And decision paths to help build confidence. Those are things that can help with transparency. So making sure you know what's going on.
Of course.
Second piece, keeping a human in the loop. Keeping the decision to automate controlled by a human helps teams to calibrate trust over time. So it's not just going to get triggered off. Like there's a human that's triggering it off that automated action. So that can really help. Testing, you want to make sure you're running these in controlled environments to validate their behavior before you're impacting live systems. And finally, you want to make sure your teams are setting thresholds or scopes for automation so it doesn't feel like a black box.
Hmm.
So that's that granular control piece of it.
It seems like when just hearing you talk, it made me think that obviously there is the desire for automation, but there's also the need for control, and it's sort of
Yeah,
finding the line, balancing between those two things. And what you mentioned, the kind of four-piece approach there, is sort of finding that balance, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to make sure that it works for your environment and your team, because automation is definitely not a one size fits all type of thing.
At Expel, we have automations that we call auto remediation actions. What is that?
Yeah, so at Expel, auto remediations enable Expel to automate certain response capabilities within your system so that attacks can be rapidly contained without requiring intervention from you. So what we'll do is we use role-based logic and integrate with third-party vendor tool APIs to enable us to take action in your environment. However, our analysts create and assign all remediation actions in Workbench, but the actions themselves are carried out within your specific vendor technologies. So we automate the remediation action itself, but not the decision to remediate.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And again, that's just allowing for control and automation to coexist in this situation.
Exactly. And we know that our analysts, are the cybersecurity experts. And so as they're investigating an incident or a potential incident, we want to make sure that they're the ones saying, oh, this is the desired action to take in this scenario, because every incident is different. So
Of course.
we want to make sure that they're the ones deciding, what remediation actions to take,
Hmm.
not just automatically tied to certain incidents.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. All right, to the coffee cup. Here we go. What do we have?
Yep.
Oh, this is so good. If you had to replace your hands with
Mhm.
two non-hand objects,
Oh
what two
man,
non-hand objects would you choose?
dang, that's a tough one. I think, yeah, probably like forks.
Yes,
That way
absolutely.
you could at least still eat.
Yeah, and you could use it for self-defense if you needed to.
Self-defense, yeah.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
like a Tong-like capability.
Oh, I love that idea. Yes. Just for transparency, my initial thought was forks as well. So
Wow, great
yeah,
minds think alike.
great minds, great minds.
There's
Again,
our opposable thumb though, which is
that
killer.
is losing the opposable thumb it's a big problem. But yeah, maybe it's fork on one hand and tongs on the other hand. That way you can get that, pinching ability somewhat.
That would be
So
nice.
deep thoughts with Claire Hogan. All right, let's move on here. We've talked about these auto remediation actions. We've defined those. What's an example of an auto remediation action that we have at Expel that feels small, but it actually in reality saves a ton of time for our customers?
A great example of this, I like to point to some of the EDR actions, and I'll talk about kill process. Um, so auto kill malicious process, it might feel small because it's a lightweight action. Like no system isolation is involved, no user disruption is involved. It usually happens within milliseconds after detection, but it can be pretty impactful. So, you know, it saves time. It prevents malware from spreading or escalating. You can think about like ransomware encrypting files. It eliminates the need for manual intervention in every single detection. And it reduces the total number of incidents requiring escalation by cutting them off early. So, all in all, killing a malicious process using an automated action creates a compounding productivity effect. Like one process kill might prevent a full investigation or a full blown response scenario. It's going to be
Mhm.
pretty impactful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Nipping it in the bud, is what
Yeah,
you do in that situation. So,
exactly.
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's hit the next one here.
Mhm.
What role does visibility or context play in determining how we carry out remediation actions?
Yeah. So this one makes me think of the previous question that we were talking about. How do we customize our response to fit your environment as a
Hmm.
customer? At Expel, we had a couple of ways that we enable this. So, like I previously said, our SOC analysts make the call on when and what to remediate. But it is based on the settings that you specify as a customer. So our customers define what should or should not be automated. And then we go through and test with our customers to make sure, those rules that are set in place are carrying out like they expect them to. So, for example, we enable our customers to customize a deny list for each action that we provide so that certain files, paths, users, etc., are not subject to the actions of a remediation. And we also enable customers to set device preferences so that our analysts know where to apply remediations in different scenarios to work the best with your systems.
Mm,
So, yeah, we have a couple of ways that we do enable customization at Expel. And, as always, like if an automation isn't working for you, you can go and shut it off. And our
mhm.
analysts will still provide to you remediation guidelines for every single incident that we work for you.
Yeah, totally. Again, it's the whole idea of the there's no one size fits all, in security. So, um, you know, uh, when an auto remediation no longer provides value to a customer, that the sole purpose of an auto remediation is to provide value. And so just making sure that it does that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
All right. I have one final question. I actually have two final questions. I have the one on auto remediation, and then we're just going to do one more to round out our time together.
Okay.
But let's do this one. So, how do you measure the impact of auto remediations on a team's productivity? We've talked about burnout as well. Is that measurable? Well, what does that look like as you're working with the SOC to think through efficiencies
Mm.
and things?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question because there's a lot of things in cybersecurity that are hard to quantify, but I do think you can accurately measure the impact of auto remediations
Mm,
on your team's productivity or burnout by using a combination of both qualitative and quantitative measures. So some of the quantitative measures I think really will show some of this value. You can see your mean time to respond or remediation. Your mean time to respond or remediate. Those values you should see go down. So you can track how auto remediation affects resolution speed over time. And also track ticket closure rates. So automation can span across both IT teams and security teams. Say in the case of disabling a user, a lot of times teams will create an internal ticket that will have to route to their IT team, who will then have to go ahead and disable that user account, send a ticket back to the security team saying this has been completed. And it can be a big process. So
it's a lot.
yeah, definitely. So one thing that you could measure to quantify the impacts an automated action like disable user is having on your teams is to track that ticket closure rate or even ticket creation rate and see if you're seeing those numbers drive down.
Yep.
But I think that you can also see a lot of it is in terms of like team productivity, team output, security team output. Are we able to kind of see more incidents that, being worked over a shorter period of time? And even just perceived workload, satisfaction, mental fatigue, check if analyst fatigue has contributed to misses or delayed responses with and without the introduction of automated remediation.
Yeah.
Like all in all, automation is not just a tech upgrade. I think it's really an investment in both your people and your security as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously, the security aspect to this, but the people part is just as huge, right? Because security at the end of the day is about your people, and you need to make sure your people are taken care of.
100%.
Oh, Claire Hogan, great conversation. Appreciate
Thanks,
your time
Stefan.
with us. One final question for you. If animals could suddenly vote in elections, what species would you least want to gain political power?
Oh, great question. Probably monkeys.
Yes.
Because
yes. Pure chaos. Pure chaos.
your chaos would ensue. I think cats would do a good job.
They would. My initial thought for least, the species I would want least was sloths, because they would never get anything done. But the people in our government don't get anything done anyways. So,
It might be okay if sloths were there.
That's true. Nothing would change. It's true. All right. Hey, Claire, I appreciate your time. This was great. And let's do a conversation again. So
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Ben, for having me. This is so fun.